Good morning, Sunday school. Good morning. So glad to see some of you already on. You know what I do on Sundays, rolling in from the first class. I actually did radio this morning and my first class. So I'm Sunday school fired up and I'm ready for our time. I'm so glad that you're here. Sister Cheryl is number one this morning from Arkansas. And Mother Ricks is just behind her. You were just behind, Mother. Just behind. But we've got another awesome lesson today. So excited. I am curious. Do you all join on Sunday mornings because you're not having class just yet, or because our family is just awesome like that? I'm kind of trying to see where people are and what churches are doing. That's a curiosity question. I'm glad you're here. So let me know if you're actually if you're actually having class with your church still, or if our family is your class still for now. Interesting. Good morning. Good morning. And please remember to click the thumbs up like button as you're coming in. Please do that for me. We're going to go ahead and get started. This week is like last week's lesson. There is a lot here, and we are going to definitely dig into it. All right. We're getting up there. Our numbers are climbing. I'm trying not to jump in too soon, but I do want to honor our time. All right. Oh, thank you, Brother Kevin. Yes, sir. All right. Yes. Good morning, family. Good morning. All right. We are going to God rewards obedience. We're in Genesis chapter 41. Thank you, Sister Wheaton. I appreciate that. I don't know why I can't get something to work over here this morning, but we're not going to stress with that. Yeah. All right. I see some of you saying this is class now. Okay. Oh, you have an early service. God bless you for that. Woo. If I had to be up at 7 o'clock, I don't know. I would do it, but I'd be drinking double coffee. I've already had my first cup. But if I had to be up at 7 a.m., I'd be on double coffee. Sister Amina, thank you so much for being a blessing to our Sunday school class this morning. And I'll say this once, if anyone wants to bless our class, you're always able to do it. Sister Amina did, which is click the super chat button down below. We also have a Givelify, and there's a Cash App, which is that Sunday school girl. Never a charge for our class, but we always put your shares to good use. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, bless you. We give you glory. We give you honor. We thank you for this day. You are an excellent God, and we thank you for allowing us to lay down last night. No harm, no danger came to us, and you allowed us another day, a fresh day, new mercy, and we don't take that for granted. We bless you today for life, for health, for strength, and just another opportunity to represent you, to be kingdom disciples, to show the world about your love, and to show people that our God is a great God. We thank you for being great in our lives, great in our situations. We love you for who you are. We thank you for what you've done. Now, God, today we ask that you'll bless our time together, open up our minds, our hearts, our understanding. God, we sit in this space because we love you. We love your word, and your word is that thing that provokes the change in our lives. Your word brings comfort. Your word reminds us of the hope that you give us through your son, Christ Jesus. I pray for every person who will be present on this call today, and even those who will catch the replay. You know what our family members stand in the need of, and you are so able and so capable. So thank you today for being just what they need you to be. Now, God, bless our time together. We love you and we give you glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. The rewards, God rewards obedience. What is the best reward you have ever received? That's one question you can answer. Or I will ask you, how are you rewarded? What is the best reward you have ever received? Or what kinds of things make you feel rewarded? I'm going to answer both questions for you. I have always, I view rewards as sort of a couple of things. I think they can be kind of a culminating idea when you've done something really great. But I also am a person who likes little celebrations along the way. So sometimes I am motivated by giving myself little rewards along the way. I think they're great ways to celebrate. Even when I look at the creation story, right? When God created the earth, he gave himself a little reward at the end of every accomplishment every day. He sat back and he told himself, that's good. And some of us are rewarded by different things. And I'm waiting on your answers to come up. Sister Woodard is rewarded by sharing. Sister Cheryl likes to celebrate milestones as well. And those things along the way. Oh, Sister Deborah says the best reward. Ooh, you had a study abroad scholarship. That is a great reward. And so when I look at rewards, again, I like to do little things along the way that kind of motivate me and make me push for that next thing. And then there's kind of that big prize at the end. And I've always been this way, right? So I, as a first grader, that's like the first time I remember 2 rewards happened in that year in first grade. 2 things that I remember. One was, when you had to sell the world's finest chocolate bars, whatever your school fundraiser was. Ours was the little chocolate bars. And they brought us into the assembly to introduce the program. And they showed, of course, all these prizes on the stage. And I went home that day with my sales sheet and I wanted the prize. I wanted that little pink bike. And I also there was a prize for your class for the person who sold the most. So at the time, I wasn't an only child. I had a 1-year-old brother, but I kind of had some only child ways. And that meant since I've always been an aggressive salesperson. You should know that. So I got multiple sheets and my mom had a sheet at work. My dad had a sheet. My 2 aunts had sheets. We called all over the country. I had people buying chocolate bars from everywhere. The bottom line is I did get the little bike prize. I did because I wanted it. But the other reward that I remember feeling really great about was my class got this giant Hershey bar. And there was one evening or afternoon after recess, and we got to eat the giant Hershey bar. You know what? It doesn't have to be big things, but there are things that do indeed make us feel rewarded. Shelby says, my daughters have a close relationship. That feels rewarding. Honors in college. That feels rewarding. To be celebrated and encouraged. My reward comes in talking and listening to my children, 37 to 55 years old, and hearing of their love for our Savior. I love that. Sister Valerie, I see you, brand new car for your 50th birthday. And if that was recently, happy 50th birthday. But I understand that I wanted a new car for a milestone birthday myself, and that felt good. Beauty is her name. Sister Sandra, I love it. You ate more of the chocolate bars than you sold. And Liv Howard says scholastic readers, where you got the books for reading, right? So a lot of things incent us. And the other thing that I asked about was, what rewards you, right? So there are some people who are rewarded by, to be honest, think about a job. When you choose your jobs, there are certain things about going to work that reward you. Some people, the only reward you need to give them comes every other Thursday night at midnight. It's called your paycheck. I feel so rewarded every time you hit that bank. Oh, I feel rewarded. There are some people who are rewarded by words of affirmation. There are some people who are rewarded by leadership. There are some people who are rewarded by the accomplishment of the tasks that they do. So we're all sort of rewarded by different things. And in all honesty, that sort of becomes our personal incentive. We'll see that it kind of it drives the way we move, the way we shake. And we're looking today at, I titled this lesson for Sunday, So You Want to Get Promoted, right? And so looking at this story, we're continuing to talk about Joseph, and we're going to see that he gets promoted, but his strategy for promotion wasn't even self-serving. It was literally about obeying God, that his reward was promotion, spoiler alert, but what gets him there, his strategy all along the way, we learn a lot from him because he obeys God. Sister Laura says, I'm rewarded by being a personal blessing or the people being blessed. I love that. Let's go ahead to Genesis chapter 41. There is a lot of reading here. I am trying to pull my notes back up so that I get all of our verses. I know we started at verse 25 and 25 through 33, 37 through 40, and 50 to 52. Our Bible truth is that Joseph runs from sexual sin, is wrongly imprisoned, but he's elevated by God. Our memory verses are 39 and 40. And our aims of this lesson are that we're going to agree that God rewards Joseph's faithfulness with success in Egypt, determined to obey God and rejoice in God's providential care during times of suffering. Let's read verses 25 through 33. 25 through 33. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 kine are 7 years, and the 7 good years are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be the 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall all be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing that is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out for a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. 37 through 40. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this man, in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God has shown thee this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, according to my word, and thou shalt my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Verses 50 to 52. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for God said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And I agree with you, Elder Kelly. This is a very timely lesson. I continue to say that these lessons don't come randomly out of nowhere, and they certainly have a way of hitting us right where we are. By way of very quick review, because there's so much in this lesson, give me quickly, like rapid fire, what you remember. What do we need to know about Joseph from last week's lesson? Give me quick background. I know you have it in your own notes. And we did look at his family structure last week. We learned a lot about him. We learned that he is one of lots of boys. He had 11 brothers. He did have a sister, but it was the brothers that we focused on. And yes, Sister Laura, he was hated by his brothers, Sister Cheryl. He was his father's favorite. He was the second youngest brother. Brother Kevin is correct. He's number 11 out of 12. Only his baby brother Benjamin was under him. And at the end of the story, Sister Valerie is right that he was sold into slavery. His brothers, because of their hate for him, a blended family. Thank you, Sister Angela. Sold by his brothers. His blended family, things just didn't work out well. But we also saw that stuff was deep-seated, right? It goes way back in his history, but he was hated so much. Wandy still believes that he was a bragger. And yes, his father gave him a coat. Thank you so much, Sister Woodard. His father gave him a coat, and he was a dreamer. The coat was important. It was a coat of many colors because it was a symbol of the love that his father had for him. Yes, he was a dreamer, Brother Kevin, and Sister Diana tells us that he dreamed twice. Not only did he dream twice, but he talked a lot about those dreams. And we decided that he was a young guy. We didn't, some of us, we were on the fence on that. He was a bragger for some, and for others, he was young and immature. But regardless of where you sit in that conversation, what we know is that it was his dreams that got him in trouble. It landed him last week when we ended in a pit. His brothers put him there. They wanted to kill him, but it was his oldest brother, Reuben, who says, let's not kill him. Let's put him in this pit. And basically we can say that an animal, got him or what have you. All of it just didn't work out well. He ended up being sold to the Midianites, and the Midianites take him into Egypt, where he is sold to Potiphar. This is where we start this week's lesson. Potiphar was the captain of the guard. working under the Pharaoh. And we've got to go back and pick up some interesting connections here because it really plays into this week's lesson. Joseph didn't realize his calling. And I think it is so interesting to know that sometimes God can speak something to us or God can show us something and we don't realize the magnitude of what it is. And we don't always realize the journey that it is going to take us to get there. So even as we think about, so you want to get promoted. Well, I may like the idea of being promoted to whatever that thing is that I may want to be. And promotion can be in our jobs. Promotion can be in our friend sets. Promotion can be in our family. Promotion can be in our churches. Promotion is just that idea of wanting to aspire to something higher. And let me start to say this. I literally believe that Sunday school is life. So the conversation that we're having today isn't just so that we will know a Bible story. I don't care where your area of promotion is. If you look at this lesson, there are principles, there are concepts, there are strategies here that will help you grow. It's going to help you in your secular career. It will help you if you are an entrepreneur. It will help you in your family. It will help you in your church relationships. I promise it will. Let's look at when he sold to Potiphar. When he goes to Potiphar, here's the thing about Joseph. He was in a tough situation. He was away from family. He has been assaulted. He has been battered. He has been abused by his family. He has been sold and now carried, and he's in a totally foreign space. He's in a place that makes no sense to the dream that God showed him. Where I am now, serving under this man, having been in that pit, my coat is gone. It has nothing to do with the bowing down that he saw and the stars and people obeying him. It looks nothing like his dream. And yet, what we continually see is that God was with him. The Lord was with him in every place that he landed and everything that he did. God was with him. And yes, Sister Sandra, promotion carries responsibilities. I agree with that. Promotion carries responsibilities. And we are in today's lesson, even right now, Sister Angela, I agree with you. Look at how he served, even in uncertainty, even where he was uncomfortable. With Potiphar, what we learned is that he was an excellent servant. He was an excellent employee. There is an opportunity for all of us, no matter where you work and what you do, that as God's people, when we show up at work, for me, I just believe that when I show up at work, the environment should change. It should change because I, as a kingdom representative, a citizen of God's kingdom, when I show up, I change the work environment where I am. I bring the salt. I bring the light. I bring the ability to change that space for the glory and honor of God. Not just my presence, but even in the quality of work that I do every day. We should show up and deliver a quality job in the work, in the assignment that we are called to do. And we see that in the person of Joseph. He is so committed and so focused on what he does that even Potiphar takes note of him and he gives him a leadership assignment. So you want to get promoted? The first thing that you need to know is that you need to show up every day with the right attitude and the right spirit and deliver your best work despite what may be going on in your background, despite what doesn't go your way, despite the things that may have been hurtful. Your attitude when you show up every day has to be one that I have shown up to be my best and to do my best. So you want to get promoted? Remember that. So he gets promoted and Potiphar puts him over pretty much everything. He trusts him. Huge. When your leader can trust you. That is a huge thing when your leader can take his or her hands off of a thing and know that you've got the initiative, that you are incented to do the right thing. And check this out. You're not going to get out of your box. You're not going to try to take over. The truth is, in some churches, that's why pastors are afraid of small group, because we have been known to take a small group and turn it into a church. No, I just trust you to lead a small group. I trust you to have the best interests at heart of those people. I trust you to build relationship, and I trust you to stay in alignment with the goals and values of our church. That's all a small group is. It's not like your mini congregation, right? So he trusted him, and he trusted him with everything, even being around his family, even being around his wife. Sister Shirley says, in spite of what we go through, we must do the right thing. Sister Diana says, when my boss wants an honest opinion, she will say, I know you will be honest with me. Absolutely. And yes, Sister Witter says they continue to watch us as Christians everywhere. Sister Campbell says so many people don't understand that your attendance is part of getting promoted. Absolutely. You show up physically, and you need to show up with the right spirit and the right determination if you want to get promoted. And so in this space of being trusted, he not only has to deal with his employer, his leader, his director, who is Potiphar, but there are other people who are around, and they see him. When you shine as an employee, when you shine as an individual contributor, everybody around you takes note. You don't even have to open your mouth and tout how great you are. You let the work that you do speak for you. And in Joseph's case, not only Potiphar saw it, but Potiphar's wife saw it. I'm interested, did anybody in your study find anything interesting about Potiphar that may have, and I don't know where I land on it. I read it and I'm aware of it, but I'm interested if you saw what I saw in your study this week that may have answered Potiphar's wife's interest in Joseph. Be obedient when nobody's looking except God, because he's going to reward that, Shelby says. Absolutely. Sister Dora says to serve with excellence. So depending on which commentaries you read, there is an argument that Potiphar was a eunuch. And if you subscribe to that, then it sort of gives you some incentive on the part of his wife in her pursuit of Joseph. I don't know that that's relevant. Let's stick to the story that we know. And that's that she pursued him, and she pursued him very aggressively. And she pursued him for sexual interaction. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. That was what she wanted from him. She observed him enough that she wanted to be with him in a way that was intimate, and he rebuffed all of her attempts. Can't do that. Listen, Potiphar trusts me. He trusts me with everything that's around. He even trusts me being around you. Can your leader trust you around everything? Trust is not what you do when your leader is standing there looking at you. Trust is that you continue to do the right thing even when your leader is gone. And here's what Joseph said. Not only does he trust me, but if I were to slip in this moment, I will do the wrong thing in front of God. And that's what we have to keep in mind. Like even when people aren't watching, God is watching. He is watching our obedience. He is watching what we do. It may not be a sexual thing, but God is watching even as we make our individual decisions. God is watching when we decide in our homes what we're going to watch, what we're going to drink, what we're going to take into our bodies. God is watching all of these things, even when people aren't. And so Joseph says, I can't do that. And she literally, and I thought about this, she is grabbing a hold of him in such a way, and he is struggling to get away from her. That is the aggression that I see. That Joseph takes a stand to do the will of God, Sister Shirley, absolutely. Stay on guard and always in prayer, Sister Angela says. And there is nothing wrong with running, Sanford Johnson said. And that is exactly what Joseph does. But look at this. She is holding on, pursuing him so tightly that as he runs with all of his physical strength, say no to this, Sister Liv. As he's doing that, she literally has his garment in her hands. Her grip is that tight to attempt to get him to do the wrong thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the devil's intent to get a grip on us so hard that we feel like we cannot move, that we cannot escape. But the Bible says that the Lord provides for us a way of escape. We see this, that she's desperate, Sister Angela, and we see that Joseph is as desperate to get away from trouble as she is to get into trouble. And after he escapes, she's standing there holding his garment. And here's our first false accusation of rape. It's a rape charge. Oh my goodness. Did you see what he did? He was in here trying to take advantage of me. And people believe her. And Potiphar especially believes her. And that is where Joseph finds himself in prison. Gotta hurry this story up, but y'all need this to see where we're going with, even with Pharaoh. We got to get through Potiphar. So he's in prison. But again, you are who you are. And where you show up, those parts of you show up where you are. So you've probably experienced that. You can go from job to job, and ultimately they probably say the same things about you because you are who you are. And when you are determined to deliver with the spirit of excellence, you'll do that whether you work for Potiphar, whether you're in a prison, or whether you are in a palace. And here we see that with Joseph, that even in prison, he stands out again among his people who are watching him, the guards, the leadership there, to the point that they give him leadership even in the prison. Ladies and gentlemen, even in tough spaces, you can be a godly leader. And he does that. Ultimately, there are two men who are put in prison with him. That is the cupbearer, who's also called the butler in some translations. And there's a baker, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Okay, there was no candlestick maker, but you understand what I'm saying. They were in prison for Pharaoh being angry with them, to be honest. And so each one of them has a dream, and they wake up and they're troubled. I looked at this. Interesting, Mother Bernadette says Potiphar knew his wife, but he protected her anyway. That's very interesting. And you're right about that. Absolutely. These dreams that each one of these men had, thought it was interesting that even in his tough space, I'm in prison. I don't like being in prison. It's a tough space for me. He could still recognize in other people when something was wrong with them, that he was not so focused on his own trouble that he couldn't pay attention to someone else. And it gets hard sometimes because our situation seems like the worst thing in the world. Nobody has ever been in a tough place when we get in it. But here we see an example that you can still share with others. You can still find a way to care about the needs of others and what's important, even in our tough spaces. Thank you so much, Brother Kevin, for your kindness every week to our class. And that Sister Valeria also has shared. Thank you for sharing. And so these men are troubled, and he asks, hey, what's wrong? Why are you looking like you're looking? And each one of them says, I had a dream. And they begin to share their dreams. Joseph interprets their dreams. We won't go through each one of them. But the dream for the butler, the cupbearer, the interpretation was that he would be restored to his position in 3 days. He would be back before Pharaoh in his same role as the cupbearer. And the cupbearer was the one who would take the drink or take the food before Pharaoh to keep him safe. And then for the butcher. Yes. The baker. I keep saying the butcher, the baker. It's the baker. Was the baker the butcher? It's the baker. Okay. Anyway, he tells him that you, sir, are going to be executed. And so in his dream, I can imagine that he thought maybe my dream will be as, Baker says my dream is going to be as great as the cupbearer, but no, Baker, you, sir, are going to be executed. I was trying to find the King Jamesy word. I had to look it up. I don't think I put it in my notes. But for the baker, it was that he would be like it was execution style, the way he would die. Like, it was pretty scary what he was told. So they are both taken back before Pharaoh in 3 days. The cupbearer is given his job back. The baker is indeed executed. So he has now interpreted a dream, and he's done it correctly. He's done it with precision. That's important for us to have all of that background, because chapter 25 is 2 years later. 2 years later. Now you have to know, when he talked to the cupbearer and the baker, the one thing he asked them for, Joseph says, you're going back before Pharaoh, but dear Mr. Cupbearer, dear Mr. Baker, please, when you get in front of Pharaoh again, remember your boy. Don't forget that we had this time together. And so it is 2 years later. 2 years. What were you doing 2 years ago? That's a rhetorical question. But 2 years is a long time when you're waiting. 2 years is a long time in prison. 2 years, yours may not be a physical prison, but if you've ever been off work before, 2 years is a long time with no job. If you've been sick before, 2 years is a long time if you're sick. If you're in a difficult marriage situation, 2 years is a long time with somebody that you can't get along with. 2 years is a long time when your expectation was that you would be remembered. So how easy it may have been for Joseph to feel again thrown away and forgotten. This isn't the first time he's been, like, there are patterns in his life. People throw him away and forget him. That coat was even a pattern. It was a coat that was a problem with his brothers. He's had a problem with a coat. You know, one of my classmates said this morning, if I was Joseph, I wouldn't even want another coat. But we'll see another robe coming up here shortly. But he is now 2 years later, and switch scenes, and Pharaoh has now had his own set of dreams, and he's troubled by what he sees in the dreams. It just doesn't make any sense to him. What is it that he's seen? Well, in dream number one, he sees cows, and these cows are in the river. The river is the Nile River. The Nile is the only river that runs through Egypt. It is the longest river in the world. It's almost 1,600 miles long. And if you remember from probably elementary school, you learned about the Nile River, and remember that it floods like once a year, and that would actually make the soil in that area very fertile. So you look at the cows, and also remember the grain is in the second dream. We'll talk about that in just a second, but a very fertile place to the point that it was called the bread basket. And so in this first dream, there are cows in the river. And that's not strange. Like, cows would have been out there just kind of cooling off or feeding on the reeds. But he sees 7 really fat, nice looking cows and 7 scrawny looking cows. Now, why cows? Why grain? Do I have anybody in our class today that is a farmer, that's from a family of farmers, that understands what it means when you see a herd of cows or a herd of pigs? If you see the chickens in a large chicken coop, at the end of the day, I am the person who, my grandparents had a farm, and I understand that when I drive by on the highway and I see a herd of cattle, that is a cha-ching. Those are not like, that's not the zoo. Those are not just zoo animals. That is a cha-ching. And that is why Pharaoh has an issue. Everything in his dream represents cha-ching. It is the economy of his country. It's a problem if his cows are skinny. It's a problem if there is no grain to be harvested. And so that is what gives him the greatest pause. He sees these 7 thin cows that come and eat up or devour the fat cows. He also sees 7 heads of grain. They're plump, they're full, they're ready to be harvested, but they're eaten by the 7 smaller grains. And so what does this all mean? What is it that's attacking my economy? Now, I have to tell you, if you had dreams about something attacking your financial position, you would have a concern. So that is what's going on. And so Pharaoh has asked for the magicians. He's asked for those who would have the ability to interpret his dream to come and to tell him what was going on. What does this mean? And now we've reached a turning point in the life of Joseph. We go back to Joseph. Sometimes someone else's need, the opportunity to serve someone else, just may be your turning point. Sometimes people are out here thinking about promotion and how to get promoted with, this is about, how many flyers I make or how many times I go out and do XYZ. The truth is, if you want to get promoted, allow God to show you your opportunity to serve someone else. If you can find out how to serve someone and to serve a need, you can get promoted. There's even a leadership nugget here. If you're working to be promoted, even in your workplace, find the thing that either your supervisor, it drives that person nuts. They don't really know how to do it, but they kind of struggle through it. And you know how. If you want to know how to get promoted, find a way to serve your leader. So here is this dream. It needs to be interpreted. He doesn't have anybody. And it is the cupbearer who now 2 years later speaks up and he says, you know what? I remember that incident where, you got mad at me, you threw me in the prison. And you remember that whole thing? Thank you for giving my job back. This has been really great. But while I was there, I did meet a man in the prison, and he was able to interpret a dream that I had. And remember that whole execution thing? Yeah. He even interpreted that as well. He told me that I would get my job back. He told the baker that you were going to execute him. And look at that. You actually did it. So he interprets accurately. And I know that he has the capability. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just stay busy doing what God told you to do, being obedient and doing the right thing, you don't even always have to promote you. There will be others who will speak your name. Your name is being brought up before great men, before great women. God has the ability to open up the door for your skill set, your capability, your capacity in the time and in the space that it needs to be. Let's talk about time and space for a second, because Joseph right now is sitting in a prison. In verse 25, he is sitting in a prison. There's a turning point happening for him while he sits in a prison. But he's also in this space in between the dreams of last week and this moment of promotion that is about to happen. Sometimes God will give you a dream. He will show you a thing, and we don't think about what it takes in the middle. We don't always pause and realize that there may be difficulty. So, for example, maybe God has told you that you're going to be an entrepreneur. That sounds great. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to make as much money as I want to make. I'm going to be able to have my own schedule. Well, he doesn't show you that the first two businesses that you start are going to fail. You don't see the part that is feast or famine as an entrepreneur before you hit the sweet spot. You don't always think about the days that you may not get the response or the feedback that you want before you actually hit what it is that you consider success. And so we see Joseph right in this space, and yet God's sovereignty is absolutely on display. God moves in his way. He moves in his time. And so often we get off track because you got one job to do. While God is doing what he does, your job, my job, is to just stay focused, to be obedient, to do what God has said do, because our promotion, our reward happens inside of our being obedient. So we've got this now obedient Joseph, who is going to be brought up before a great man, because now it is that cupbearer who remembers him. He remembers that God uses this man to interpret dreams. God uses him. He doesn't just sit there and say anything that people want to hear. There are a lot of people who will say what they think you want to hear. You need someone who speaks accurately, King or Pharaoh. So let me show you who this man is. When they bring Joseph up before the Pharaoh, and he's told about the dreams. Verse 25, we finally get to the printed text that Joseph says, these two dreams that you dreamed are actually one thing. They all mean the same thing. And he begins to explain. Joseph's action showed powerful leadership through good and bad times. Joseph kept his integrity. Absolutely, Sister Roll. And yes, we must wait on the Lord and his timing, Sister Brenda and Sister Shell, for sure. We've got to endure, Sister Brenda, and stay humble, Mother Dorothy, Sister Dorothy. We've got to do that and wait on God, Sister Tracy says. So he's explaining these two dreams. In the first dream, now both of these things, let's be really clear. This is about the cows and the grain. These are economic impact. He's absolutely got something to do with your economy. What he's telling you in both of these dreams is that the seven good cows, the seven good grain heads, those represent 7 good years. And then these 7 thin cows and 7 thin heads that come and consume the others, well, that represents the 7 years of famine that are coming behind the good years. And so God is giving you this, and he's giving it to you twice because he wants you to know that it is absolutely going to happen. How interesting that God allows Pharaoh to know this before it happens. He doesn't let him get caught off guard. He gives him the ability to understand what is coming up ahead. What do you do when you know there is difficulty up ahead? How do you begin to prepare? Well, when you or I know, if we know that something difficult is coming, we immediately go into problem solving mode. In fact, one of the things that I thought about in this lesson is my grandmother, and today is Grandparents' Day. Happy Grandparents' Day to all you grandparents out there. Amen. My grandmother used to say, prepare for a rainy day because a rainy day is coming. And that is a life principle that is on a continuum. We should always be doing that. But the truth is, we don't always operate like that, right? But here's a space where you know that difficulty is coming and you know that you have time to prepare for it. So what is it that you do? What is your strategy? This is akin to somebody telling you, you are going to lose your job. You got 2 years that the next 2 years are going to be real good, but your company is going to go through a downsizing. There's going to be a reorg. Your company is going to go bankrupt and you're going to lose your job. And then for the next, 2 years, you're not going to have a job. Now, I know the lesson says 7, but 2 years with no job is a long time to us. 2 years to go without is a long time to us. And so what do? Yes, Mother Ricks, you've got to get a strategy to plan and save. Sister Vernita says you've got to get yourself a strategy for the battle. You've got to arm yourself for what you know is up ahead. So here's Pharaoh, and he's holding this information. As a leader now, as a leader of Egypt, he's looking and saying, I've got all of these people and there's getting ready to be a problem here. Leaders, when you see that there is a problem up ahead, there are people who are depending on you to have the right strategy, to know what to do. And it is just so interesting because even as Joseph talks about how bad this famine is going to be, he's saying, this thing is going to be so bad that folks are going to forget what it was like to live a good life. This is going to be like, I can't even tell you anymore about how bad this is going to be. He communicates in extremes so that Pharaoh understands what is coming up ahead. And now Pharaoh hears this. And as a leader, he knows that he's got to get something in place. There's got to be a strategy. There is action that is required. Yes, Sister Elise, God will warn us to prepare for our future. The community must always come together and share, Mother Ricks. Absolutely. We don't always have to make a way for ourselves. God will provide. He teaches us to prepare in the time of plenty. So we're looking basically at an impending national disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you I don't think these Sunday school lessons come for no reason. Here we see the example of looking at a national disaster that's up ahead. And we are sitting ourselves in the middle of something we have never experienced before. None of us has lived through a global pandemic. None of us has lived through this kind of national disaster. Look in your communities at the number of businesses that didn't even survive the first 6 months. And I hate to be the one to say what you probably already know, but this is not over. I don't care who was on the beach last week. I don't care what the school systems are deciding. I don't care who is doing whatever else. There is still more up ahead. And I believe this lesson is coming to remind us that we cannot get lax right now because we think it's a comfortable time, but we've always got to be in a preparedness for the disaster that we know is up ahead. And so here is Pharaoh, who like us knows that there's something that's coming up ahead and that it is not going to be good. And so, yes, he has got to prepare now, but he also, this is so interesting for me, immediately, this is not even a time for a leader to be arrogant. Leaders, you know that there are limits to some things that you can do. There are some leaders who are honest enough to say, I'm a leader, but I don't know how to do these things. And so I put these kinds of people around me. I'm going to go ahead and say it. In our presidential leadership right now, we have a leader who is so arrogant that he cannot say when he doesn't know something. He is not honest enough to put the right kinds of people around him who are honest, who are spiritual, who have the right integrity. And that comes out very loud and clear in his leadership. But Pharaoh here is saying, I don't know how to handle this. Like, this is big, but I don't have even the skill set. I don't have the managerial capability for what it's going to take to get through this. And so he begins to say, Joseph says to him, you're going to have to find somebody who can do this for you, somebody that you can set over the affairs of this country. This is going to require a special kind of leadership. Managing through crisis and managing through change is tough. You've got to think about the resources that are in play, but you've also got to think about the people. If you've ever gone through any kind of crisis management, crisis in general, think about it, whether you were the leader or the person going through it. When things are difficult, you are looking to the leader. What is we going to do? What did you have in mind? And we do look to leaders for their leadership, for their strategy. If your church has been through something difficult, you've looked to your pastors. What are we going to do? If your family has been in trouble, I remember growing up, my father was the man of the house. Daddy gave leadership. I believe that husbands bring leadership to families. We are looking to leaders in difficult times. And so here's Pharaoh, and he doesn't know what to do. He's got to find somebody to set over the affairs. And here's the type of leader. We find out what types of leadership are valued in a time of crisis. The first thing is got to be somebody who's discreet. And secondly, wise. Let's talk about discretion for just a second. And yes, Shelby, I agree with you that you got to recognize your strengths. You got to play your strengths. And if something is not your strength, then you need to put somebody around you who has it. And even if something is your strength, not only your own strength, but you need to recognize your capacity. So as a leader, if you are into a project that is growing, I'm guilty of this lately, right? I'm very independent. I like to do what I can for myself. And to be honest, I'm not independently wealthy. So even as it relates to that Sunday school girl, there are things that God has shown me and things that I've had in my heart to do. And I have always done a lot of the things that you see by myself and for myself. Recently, I recognize that I am inside of something that God is doing that's bigger than what I am capable of handling. So to be honest, I've begun to outsource some things because as a leader, you have to have those moments where you acknowledge that something is bigger than your capacity. And so he says that you need someone who is discreet. What does it mean to be discreet? What does it mean to be discreet? It means that you don't run your mouth about everything that you know. A strong leader does not talk too much. They don't disclose all of the information. They don't reveal too many details. You can trust someone who is discreet. Their mouths are not all over creation. There are some folks who are just excited about what they know. Oh, I got invited to a meeting. Oh, pastor said, oh, did you know? No, see, that's why you don't get to know, because you are not discreet in your dealings. When you're looking at someone's discretion, what you want to figure out is, first of all, you share on a need to know basis, right? Secondly, you need to make sure that the people that you bring into your trusted circle have a shared sense of value and a shared sense of goals with you. That's right, Sister Brenda, don't be a motor mouth. And Sister Latasha, I agree that there is a certain level of detachment that some leaders have because you cannot become too familiar, too common in your conversation. You can't be so busy that you don't hear from God. Thank you so much, Brother Johnson. You have to learn to be quiet. Absolutely, Sister Linda. This is back to the lesson of controlling your tongue, Sister Brenda. And I agree that being discreet it's that tongue control. It is about self-control, realizing that you can't tell it all. You know, the truth is sometimes on the opposite side, on the receiving side, we feel like leaders, they don't tell us everything. They're not being honest. It's not that they're not being honest, but leaders can't always tell you every single detail of what is going on. They can't always be transparent. As a leader, you cannot tell it all. You cannot tell it all. And yes, you do have to have a still spirit, Sister Dorothy Peoples. And we don't all get to know everything, Brother Kevin. Absolutely. But there also, the flip side of that is when you trust your leader, you need to let your leader lead. Trust what they're doing. Trust the info. Let your leader lead. And if you are a leader, learn the safe spaces. Learn who is around you and learn that you cannot tell it all. The second thing is wisdom. We just spent a whole quarter talking about wisdom. What was wisdom? The ability to live skillfully. Here is the ability to lead skillfully, to know what to do and when to do, why you're doing it, how long you're going to do it, who you're going to involve in it, where to move things, how all the different pieces should be moved on the board. And this, we talked about last quarter, is not worldly wisdom, but looking for someone with godly wisdom. How do I know that he wanted someone with godly wisdom? Well, as we look at Joseph, Pharaoh actually says, I need somebody like this man in whom the Spirit of God is. At this point, all Joseph has told Pharaoh is the kind of leader. Listen, you need somebody who can manage this. This is the kind of person you want to get right here. And he begins to talk about, it's kind of like, now, here's kind of what that person might think about doing. And he lays out a strategy, and Pharaoh believes that his strategy, he says, oh, that's good. Like, he's good. Hold on. I need somebody like that. And what Joseph lays out, he basically becomes the first FEMA director. He lays out a plan that talks about saving, an extreme saving plan. You know there's devastation up ahead. So when you know there's devastation up ahead, you get real tight on where you are now to create some comfort and safety at a later time. And so his full plan was to begin to tax at 20%. Let's tax at 20% in these 7 years. Let's double up. Because when those next 7 that are hard come, we will have stored up something. Ladies and gentlemen, there is our wisdom for this week. In the good times, in your better times, challenge yourself. I don't know what you're saving today, but challenge yourself to put up a little bit more. I know we say, I can't afford to do this much more. I can't. Yes, you can, because you drink Starbucks. Whatever that thing is that you can put aside to put up, this is a time, this is a season that we need to put up a little bit more. I brew coffee at home now. Bless God for gift cards. The only Starbucks I drink in this season is if I get a gift card from somebody. Otherwise, that Keurig and I, bless God for those Starbucks pods that get delivered here by Amazon. This is not my season for $6 cups of coffee. It is a time to begin to put up. And what does that 20% come from? If you look back in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 15 and 18, the tax cap was 10%. It would have been considered tyrannical to tax at anything above that. But here was the wisdom. If we don't go higher now, it is going to be tyrannical to ask people for something extreme in the years of a famine, right? And so there are a lot of leaders even thinking right now about let's just be honest, we're in the season of celebrating our leaders. There are lots of church anniversaries and pastoral anniversaries that happen. And there are some leaders who are looking at 2020 saying, this has already been a hard year for people. Is this a way that we want to continue to tax? And so Joseph is saying that in the years that are more difficult, you can't require as much. They won't be able to do it. And that was a good plan. Pharaoh recognizes God's Spirit in him. When the Spirit of the Lord is in you, you become a difference maker wherever you are. And I encourage you to think about the fact that you are a difference maker. I started talking about being different when you walk into your workplaces. People should know that. You should be salt and light where you enter. Please don't be that person that they dread seeing coming in the door, but you are a difference maker. Pharaoh says that inasmuch as this man has God in him, and you know what? There is nobody like him. I've looked, I've seen all of your skills. There is nobody like him. There is nobody like you. God has called you. He's given you things that are unique and special to you. And just like Joseph, God can create these moments where your unique skill set will come up for the right thing and the right time. This is where I see that dreams really do come true. And here this is, all of this time that's taken place, from the dream and the pit to this moment of promotion. So you want to be promoted? Just stay faithful. Just do the right thing. Just obey God. And here we see Joseph's promotion. It's the big come up story. It is a moment of redemption. The family stuff in his background, it didn't matter anymore. The sexual exploitation of Potiphar's wife, it didn't matter anymore. Now, it mattered because it got into this point, but it was nothing that stopped God's plan from being active in his life. Even being in prison, even with a prison record, being a felon, a sexual crime is a felony. Even being a felon, he was able to be promoted because of God in his story. It wasn't because he was wonderful, but the sovereignty of God is on display. You set the atmosphere with your praise. You never stop dreaming, Sister Cheryl says. Joseph's sincerity made room for him, Sister Shirley says. And what God has for you, Sister Dorothy says, it absolutely is for you. He is basically made the second in command. And Pharaoh says that there isn't going to be anybody, you're basically going to be equivalent to me. I mean, I'll still be over you and I'll be only greater than you by this throne, but everything else, you got this. You run this country. You do what needs to be done. And Pharaoh actually gives him there. This is a season of new things for him. And so he actually gets another robe. He gets a new wardrobe, and he gets kingly clothes. He gets a new ring. Pharaoh actually takes off his own signet ring and gives it to him. He gets a gold chain. He even gets executive transportation. I hope that even in here, if you are a leader, I hope that you see even in here the power of the second chair. It means a lot when you have a leader who trusts you in a way that they can take things off of their plates. Notice that Pharaoh does not intend to be a micromanager. If you have someone who is a micromanager, they are lacking trust. And here trust is released completely to Joseph, as he is going to be the person who oversees what will happen in this famine. He has power. He has authority to solely manage the state of affairs. We even see that not only does he get a robe and a ring and a necklace, but he even gets a wife. And that's where we find out about the daughter of the priest of On, and that his daughter was from a high-ranking family, so he doesn't get a nobody. Interesting for me that he was given a wife. He did not choose his wife. He was given a wife from a very high-ranking family. Yes, he comes from under the pit to being over Egypt, Sister Deborah says. Absolutely. And he and his wife go on to be productive. He's productive in his own ways before the famine actually hits. 2 years before, years before, he has two sons who were born. The names of his sons really speak to his experience, right? So his first son is Manasseh, and that means that he has forgotten all of the bad stuff that happened back to him in his father's house. And we know from last week some bad stuff happened. Oh, this is a whole lesson in itself. What does it mean to forget? To forget doesn't really mean that you don't have a conscious understanding of what went on, but there are some burdens that people carry, and we allow them to continue to weigh us down and not to progress in the ways that God has designed. Here Joseph is saying, I choose to shed all of that, and we're not even going to talk about that every day. Yes, some bad things happen to me, but I am not going to allow that to be the thing that keeps me from where I know God is taking me and what he's promised. His second son says that even though I've had great difficulty and I'm in a space of difficulty, even in what I've been through, God has made me fruitful. We should be encouraged to know that God can make us fruitful even in the places that don't feel productive. In the 13 years, Sister Deborah tells us, from the pit to the palace, it may not have seemed like productivity from the ways that man measures productivity, but we see that everything that God has allowed has been a part of Joseph's story. I know we called him a tattletale last week, but even last week, we saw that he knew how to go out, how to supervise, how to bring back a report, how to know right from wrong. And here are those very same skills that are present in his life for where God was going to take him. There are some things even about you. You've been doing them since you were a child. And if you look at them, you see that God has used them to make them part of your story. His obedience, yes, will save his family. And we're going to pause there because we got 2 more weeks of Joseph. Just a few quick nuggets from me, from my own learnings, and you can start to drop things. What are your big headlines, your big key learnings from this week? We're going to wrap up in 2 minutes. I say that in your most difficult times, even in the things that we don't understand, know that God is preparing you for something amazing. Continue to be obedient. Obedient is yes, Lord, even when you don't understand. Obedience is yes, Lord, when it doesn't feel good. Obedience is saying yes to God, even when you would have done it a different way. Obedience is yes to God, even when it hurts. We should avoid being bitter with those who fail us. Think about the cupbearer and the baker who did fail Joseph, but he did not have bitter attitudes against them. Hold on here. I am trying to wrap up, and I do see we have a troll in here, and I'm not going to be given to that. Yeah, we're praying for you, and we'll delete your comments, and we will block you after this wraps up here. Let me finish up. You don't have to promote you. So you want to be promoted. You obey God. You follow God. Even when you have distractions like this troll in here today, you do what God told you to do and know that he's watching your obedience. He is watching with every intent to reward. As a leader, remember to play your strengths. Play your strengths. When you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. And even with an uncertain future, know that God can give you the strategy that you need for success. Your trials will bring triumph in the end, Sister Sandra says. With God, all things are possible, Sister Wheaton says. Thank you, Brother Kevin. And I thank those of you who are praying. We'll get the troll out here in just a second. That's right. Obedience is difficulty while having the peace of God. I agree with that. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. It is 11 o'clock, so it's time for me to go to our worship service at Dominion Word. If you do not have a place that you are worshiping this morning, you can join me at Dominion Word. I'm sure that Pastor is already up and preaching. Love you all. Don't forget to sign up on that SundaySchoolGirl.com if you're not receiving emails. Subscribe if you are new. Click that thumbs up. See you tomorrow night for Markup Monday. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.